Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here today for this outreach session on securing funding for airport opportunities. I'm your host, Amy Benson with Unibail Rodamco Westfield. In of New York and New Jersey, URW is pleased to work with the new Terminal 1, the new ground-up international terminal being built as the global gateway to the New York metropolitan area. URW is the commercial program manager responsible for the redevelopment of the concessions program for JFK International Airport at the new Terminal 1. Throughout the development, URW is looking to partner with local, women, and minority-owned businesses for concessions, merchandising, retail, and dining opportunities. So we are delighted you have chosen to join us for this outreach session, and we look to create economic opportunities for the community and build programs that showcase New York's world-renowned shopping and culinary scene. Next slide. So, why are we here today? Well, today's session will introduce you to the estimated cost to operate in an airport, including providing products, gaining knowledge about joint venture agreements, and learning about running your own concession, whether that be a restaurant, specialty retail, or a travel essential store. You will hear more about available funding sources, learn about technical support, and gain knowledge about guidance outlets. We're going to dive into subjects including access to capital, bond assistance, loan funds, contractor finance programs, and more. Following the presentation, we are going to share next steps, including matchmaking with potential lenders and key certifications. Finally, we are going to close with Q&A, and you will learn how to get in touch with resources on our team that can support your success. Next slide. So a few housekeeping points as we start today's program. This session is being recorded and it will be posted on our website for replay, along with the presentation. We will open the floor to questions later in the program, but if you have a question at any time during the presentation, add a question in the Q&A tab in the engagement panel on the right. Mobile users can access Q&A using the Q&A button below the live stream video feed. We will answer submitted questions at the end of the program. So by registering for today's event, you are now on URW's diverse supplier list and will receive project updates. Next slide. Let's meet our speakers. So as mentioned before, my name is Amy Benson and I'm the VP of Marketing for URW. I am also executive sponsor of URW's Advanced Network, which is focused on growing small, local, minority, and women-owned diverse business opportunities across our portfolio. Please welcome Ashley Harry, Director of Leasing with URW. Ashley is a member of the team leasing the new Terminal 1 and brings great expertise on small business opportunities and partnerships with the community. From Empire State Development, please welcome Angeli O'Connell, Project Associate Capital Access. And from RFW Consultants, our partner in supporting new businesses and navigating airport opportunities, please welcome Compliance Specialist Quentin Bailey. Next slide. I'm now going to bring to the stage Ashley Harry, Leasing Director with URW, to provide a leasing overview of the new Terminal 1 and to walk us through key partnership examples. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Amy, and thanks everybody for being here today. We understand there's a lot going on, so taking time out of the middle of your day is very, very much appreciated. Today, we're going to take you through a very specific set of information around securing funding for airport opportunities. So on some of our previous outreach events, we've talked about opportunities. We've taken you through wholesale, what that looks like. I think the one theme throughout everything that we do is really how to get ready and how to stay ready for airport opportunities. And I will tell you the majority of that is, not only business readiness, but financial readiness as well. So let's take a look at the next slide and we'll kind of walk you through this very special project. And, truthfully, a lot of what we're going to share today, translates to other airport environments, especially the Port Authority programs. So what you're looking at here are two aerial viewpoints of the new Terminal 1. Amazing project. It's, if you've been to JFK lately, you'll see it really taking shape. It is by far the biggest terminal over at JFK from a square footage perspective. We will be opening the first phase in June of 2026, followed by the second phase of 2028 and 2029 in 2 parts. So we're really, really very much excited for and looking forward to that. There will be a lot more opportunities at the new Terminal 1. So look, this is just one of many that we are bringing to market. Next slide. So what we wanted to cover here is just kind of your typical commercial terms, just to give you some kind of lay of the land of this type of environment. So with our lease agreements in airports, we have what's called a sublease between URW and the tenant. This only applies to a tenant who has a direct deal. If you are a joint venture or if you are doing a wholesale type of agreement, those will be directly through the operators and not through URW. That's one difference. The URW, as kind of the middleman, usually has a sublease or a lease with our master concessionaire, sometimes, an airline, sometimes the Port Authority. It really depends on the project. But typically our leases are anywhere from 5 to 10 years on average, right? And these are for full long-term inline spaces, food and beverage, services, travel retail, travel essentials, it's also known as specialty retail, duty-free. Typically duty-free will have the longest term, given that they are usually the biggest pieces of the project. They require the most amount of capital to build out and the longest to amortize, et cetera. In some of our programs, you will find automated retail or vending opportunities, as well as, accelerator, incubator, smaller format opportunities. So I would encourage you that while you're thinking about opportunities, think about which one is right for you. Each terminal is very different from the next. So what we talk about, for Terminal 1 today, will look different from our other terminal project at JFK Terminal 8. Which will look different than other developers' projects, at Terminals 4, 5, and 6 over at JFK. So as a blanket statement, if you've seen one terminal, you've seen one terminal, right? Don't think that each one is the same or each one is looking for the same thing, just as a general rule of thumb. So when we're looking at rent structures, we're doing a greater of scenario. So, whichever is greater. We have a minimum annual guarantee, which is usually the lower of the two. And then we have a percentage tiered margin of sales. So, figure 10 to 20 to 30%, depending on what category you fall into above. So, if you're doing $100,000 in sales at 10% rent, do the math. That's what you would be paying on some of these deals. Again, each of them are different. But this is something to kind of expect, I'd say, in this airport environment in general. In addition to, there's ancillary long-term kind of ongoing charges. We have common area maintenance, storage if you require, which these are all additional above and beyond the rent. Marketing fees, property tax, company badges and access, those type of things. Should all be looked at individually. The rent doesn't cover all of the ancillary fees of operating in an airport. So just something we wanted to call out. Amy mentioned this will be sent around and shared on our website for future reference as well. So if you didn't get all the notes to this, certainly you can take a look after. Let's move to the next slide. We at URW really love to create different types of entry points for all types of vendors, business owners, equity partners, et cetera. It's very important to us. Not everybody is ready to come into a direct operation, and that is okay, right? It's a very, very difficult environment to operate in. And so subsequently, we have created lots of other avenues to get into the airport space or get your foot in the door, so to speak. That some people are happy at staying at forever, right? Some people are looking for that escalation avenue. But if we start here on the left, product placement has been by far one of our most successful ways for local businesses to enter the airport space. Lowest overhead. It has, a big upside. Basically, this looks like, I have I have a candle. I'm a local candle maker, and I'm looking to have my candles on the shelves of other people's stores, basically, if you kind of think about it like that. We have held multiple outreach events for this exact purpose. It's called wholesale in airports. So you would enter into a wholesale agreement with an operator to provide your products to the operator for their shelves. We will be holding more of these throughout the coming weeks and months as we get into the first half of the year. We will have our duty-free partner come to the table who is looking for local products, and other operators from there. So if this is something that interests you, please keep your eye on our communications, and we will share more as we get there. Automated retail vending, it's a bit of a step up depending, right? These two sometimes are interchangeable. But the automated retail, you are responsible for the machine. You are responsible for keeping it stocked. You are responsible for paying the rent. You are responsible for having a third-party supplier, logistics company kind of putting the product into the machine. So depending on where you find yourself, these two can be a step or they can be interchangeable depending. Next one would be kind of a food hall or food partner licensee. That is kind of the next step where you license a food product or you're part of a food hall, right? And it's somebody else is paying for and managing on the day-to-day, but you are, it's a little bit more responsibility than, let's say, product placement where you ship goods to somebody to put them in a store. Next, we have our LB Accelerator program. Again, these aren't available in every project, but they're important for you to understand. We have kiosks and sometimes we have inline stores, which again are kind of an evolution of capacity in airports, if you're looking at it like that. And then we have our JV / ACDB operator partnership. JV is also known as joint venture. So if you are an ACDB certified business in a joint venture with a prime, that means you are providing equity and knowledge or experience in a certain subject matter to that deal to help support kind of their overall initiative. Again, that's a little vague, but we'll walk you through what some of the financials look like. And again, it's different deal to deal, right? So Hudson could have a need for a JV partner that, is used to product sourcing and logistics. And then you could have a food operator who needs kind of somebody with that local flavor of how to bring more local products into a bar setting through dispensaries or breweries or things like that, right? So when you're looking at it and considering your skill set, there are a lot of opportunities. And then lastly, on the right here is a direct operator. This means I bring my own brand into the airport and build out fully my own space, and I staff it, operate it. I'm responsible top to bottom for it. So let's move on to the next slide, and we'll show you some scenarios of kind of what a JV partnership could look like. Now, again, this is one financial model. This is subjective deal to deal, right? We are making up a fake scenario here. So I want you to just understand that, but you can see sort of the math that goes on at a very high level to kind of give you a valuation of your participation. So if we start on the left, the deal is always based on kind of the CapEx, right? The capital expenditure. And that includes the cost to build out, the startup costs, and any type of working capital that is needed to get you off the ground, so to speak. So next box, let's estimate the value of a deal, right? So $2,000 a foot is what we're valuing box one on. $2,000 a foot covers all of our FF&E, which is our furniture, fixtures, equipment, permitting, architect, insurance, printer paper, right? All of that is bundled up and it costs $2,000 a foot. And the space is 5,000 square feet, right? Just for round numbers. That equals $10 million, right? So think about this. If you are a direct operator, $10 million for you to come into a 5,000 foot space just to start, those are very real costs in the airport, right? We're not going to sugarcoat it. If you are coming in at the ACDB partner level, there are various ways that you can get to you can start at a 5% partner. You can go up to a 30% partner is usually the highest we see. I've seen every iteration. I've seen 5, I've seen 7%, I've seen 10%, I've seen 20, 25, 30. Really, it's very dependent on the deal and the situation. But for this instance, we will do a 30% partner. So what we do is we take our $10 million CapEx, right, at 30% is $3 million. So that joint venture partner would be responsible for securing their own $3 million loan. And 20% of that is due at signing of that loan. So that's, if you think about it, $600K cash that's due at signing or to execute a loan like that. And then on the right, it kind of shows the split on financials long-term, right? So you put 30% equity in the deal on the front end, then you are taking 30% of the profit, the net profit out of the deal, year over year over year throughout the term, right? We talked about 5 to 10 years generally. Oh, okay, thank you. And you're starting to take the profit after the loan payoff and the amortization, right? So I think those are two important things. Let's look at another model. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you go back one? Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Apologies. Okay, so when you are thinking about becoming a joint venture partner, there is a vetting process, right? You're not just going to walk up off the street and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I have so-and-so to do. There's some background checks, equity checks, a whole bunch of things that go into this. These are the typical steps, very high level. So you fill out a partner information form, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, which means both parties are going to agree to not share any of this pertinent or financial information about each other elsewhere. Go through a background check. Your ACDB and NAICS codes, certification codes are verified. There is a website to do that if you wanted to confirm that your codes are verified or verifiable. There's a financial statement review. So you should expect to be giving, this future potential partner all of your financial statements to review that illustrate that you are a qualified, strong financial partner for this type of deal. Assuming we get through stages 1 through 5, again, not we, URW, but assuming the prime operator and the ACDB get through steps 1 through 5. Step 6 is entering into a letter of intent, which the parties will sign, which kind of illustrate the high-end commercials, right? Who each other are, what this divide on the ACDB percentages are, what the financial split looks like, yada, yada. As a next step to kind of securing the deal before entering into the sublease negotiation. So just wanted to kind of give you some high level steps to understand that, it's not a very quick process. A lot of things have to be looked at and verified to move on to the next stage. Next slide. Okay, so the direct operation model, we started with this on the JV side, right? But you see, what I kind of alluded to, if you were coming into a 5,000 foot space, you would need $10 million in capital to get started. And then on the right here, you have ongoing responsibilities such as staffing, ancillary business costs, and rent that is agreed upon. Staffing includes things like hiring. Port Authority has a very high minimum wage. Right now it's in the high $20, mid to high $20 range per hour per staff. There is an escalation period for that over the next few years that everybody at the Port Authority has to abide by. There's training, there's customer service training, there's business training, right? Think about all these things that go into kind of a long-term operation. Then you have things we talked about before, these ancillary costs, and then your rents, just to kind of keep in mind. So very expensive airports are very expensive to operate in. Next slide. And I think I'm going to turn it back to Amy.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate all that information. And I'm sure there are a lot of questions. So as a reminder, we are going to open the floor to questions later in the program. And if you have a question at any time during the presentation, you can just add a question in the Q&A tab in the engagement panel on the right. So let's move on to our next speaker. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Anjali O'Connell. She's a project associate with Capital Access from the Empire State Development. So welcome, Anjali.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited to share some of the resources that Empire State Development has created to meet the financing needs for contractors and also Main Street small businesses. I'm sure many of you have heard that New York State will be launching an ACDBE program through the partnership of our participating lenders. That is scheduled to launch sometime later this year. But in the interim between now and the launch, if you have a bridge financing need under 500,000, or as Ashley mentioned, you're building your business capacity, then the following programs I'm about to touch base on will be for you. Next slide, please. So a little bit about how ESD provides capital. Our funding source is from the State Small Business Credit Initiative under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2022. Every single jurisdiction in the United States has allocated SSBCI funding. New York State's allocation was $500 million, and through this funding, ESD provides support to banks, CDFIs, and nonprofits throughout New York State through loan participation programs and loan loss reimbursement and reserve programs to our CDFIs for them to offer low interest capital. Our programs target funding to those who have had access to credit on reasonable terms diminished as compared to others in comparable economic circumstances. And this could be because your business is residing in a low income community or an underserved community as well. Next slide, please. So as a contractor, if you're bidding for a state or city contract, most of the time you'll be required to secure a surety bond, specifically bid, performance, or payments bonds. This is going to be a challenge if your small business is undercapitalized and lacks the necessary collateral to meet the requirement of getting bonded. So what ESD did with a portion of the SSBCI funding is that we allocated $22 million to create the Surety Bonding Assistance Program. Through this program, as a borrower, you would apply through our surety companies, but we provide the surety companies guarantees of up to 30% or 600,000, whichever is less on a bond line, bid bond, or payment performance bonds available through ESD. Again, the surety company will either be deciding the approval, and that's based on the underwriting by the surety company and ESD's reviews. The guarantees for bond lines and bid bonds include zero fees or costs. The small business is responsible for surety company's typical bond premium charge. For eligibility criteria, the small business must have an existing operation in New York State with at least 2 years of business operations. The average gross revenue is 400,000 in each of the last 2 fiscal years, with a max at 5 million per each year. The maximum bond line or project size is around 2 million, a minimum credit score of 600, and you must have previous experience completing similar work to the current contract opportunity. Next slide, please. So I think one of my slides was missing, but how to apply for the Surety Bond Assistance Program. That is specifically, that's one of our Senior Vice President's programs. So you would have to contact her. Her name is Miss Wei Min Chuang. I think I had a slide regarding her information, but I can circulate that at the end as well. Next slide, we'll just go on to the New York Forward Loan Fund. Oh, one more back, sorry. So for the next 3 programs that I'm going to touch base on, they're all very similar in which they can take care of your everyday working capital needs. The only difference is that the amounts range are different, and how to apply is also different. So for our New York Forward Loan Fund, it's very straightforward. We allocated about $150 million to this specific fund. And if you need a loan that's under 150,000, then this would be the program for you. There is a term of 36 to 72 months, and then fixed interest at 8.5% to 11.5%, and depending on the length of the loan. There's no origination fees and no prepayment penalties. To be eligible for this program, you must have an existing operation in New York State, 100 or fewer full-time employees, and less than 5 million in gross annual revenue. And you must have had at least one active year of business operation and demonstrated ability to repay the loan through previous and projected cash flow. Next slide, please. Under the New York Forward Loan Fund, eligible uses include your startup costs, working capital, franchise fees, acquisition of equipment, inventory or services used in production, manufacturing or delivery, purchase, construction, renovation, or improvements of an eligible place of business that is not passive real estate investment purposes. So not a holding company, it must be an active property. It could also be used towards payroll, utilities and rent, supplies, marketing, and advertising. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the New York Forward Loan Fund, I mentioned right before I dove into this one that the only difference would be to how to apply. So for this specific program, it's very straightforward. You would access the pre-application through www.nyloanfund.com, where you will go through a series of pre-application questions, and then you will be matched to one of these participating lenders. We partner with ASEAN Opportunity Fund, Ascendus, NDC, Grow America, Pursuit, and also True Fund. Next slide, please. For our small business revolving loan fund, we've allocated $55 million to this specific program. And what's great about this program and the next program is that through either of these programs, you can access short-term loans or managed lines of credit and lines of credit. Through the lines of credit, that's where you'll really be able to see your opportunity to build capacity, at least financially, through these programs. But for our small business revolving loan fund, this is intended for small businesses, including nonprofits, with at least 2 to 3 years of active business operations. Our average issuance as of December 31st of last year was 250,000. We do have a range of what could be available through the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, but again, that's going to depend on who the participating lender is. But our range can go from $500 to a maximum of $1 million, and that's dependent on credit and fund availability. The average APR as of December 31st was 8%. We have a maximum term of up to 7 years. And like the New York Forward Loan Fund, eligible uses includes working capital, acquisition and improvement of real property, purchase of equipment and machinery, and refinancing subject to certain conditions. Okay, so, moving on to our last program. Our contractor financing program was designed specifically for contractors who are working on a New York State or a New York City government project. To apply for this program, you must be a prime or a subcontractor, either pre-bidding or in an active contract with a New York State or city government project. This program can offer short-term loans, lines of credit, or managed lines of credit of up to $500,000, depending on credit and eligibility. Our average issuance, the range is between $75,000 to $250,000 as of now, with our average APR between 3% to 6%. The interest rate is capped at 13.5%, which is the prime rate plus 5. For those interest rates, if you're going through the contractor financing program, I know that through some of our participating lenders, if you do have a city contract, you can get your interest as low as 3%, but again, that's dependent on your credit. For state contracts, we've seen like a straight line of 6% all across the board, but again, dependent on your credit. The average term is based on the contract length. And then the eligible uses include working capital, improvement, machinery and equipment, payroll, construction costs, inventory, and general working capital. Okay, so next slide, please. So I wanted to also touch base on a few upcoming programs. I know many of you are very familiar with the Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, the ACDBE program that New York State is scheduled to launch. We are allocating $50 million from SSBCI funding to that program. And the objective of this will be to provide credit enhancement and direct lending to capital to participating banks and community development financial institutions to provide loans to DOT certified ACDB firms at New York City airports. We are still in the process of getting those of finalizing that program. However, when I last spoke with my team, we are looking to hopefully leverage loans from $250,000 to $3 million through that program. And then through our SBRLF loan participation program, we are allocating $19 million towards that program and leveraging a partnership with Inclusive, who is a leading network of credit unions all throughout New York State and also some in New Jersey as well, in a first of its kind loan participation program. We are providing $5 million in SSBCI capital to leverage $14 million in matching funds from participating CDFI credit unions under Inclusive to provide low interest capital. And then lastly, I think Ashley had touched base on if you're still growing your business and you're looking for technical assistance, we are launching our SSBCI technical assistance program where we've selected 8 different CDFIs to provide funding for eligible technical assistance through legal, accounting, and financial advisory assistance to small businesses. We are still finalizing the details on that, but a full list of providers will be circulated, hopefully by the end of next month. And last slide, please. Okay, so jumping back to the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund and the Contractor Financing Program, if you are interested in being matched with a participating lender from one of those funds, or even if you have interest in the surety bonding assistance, we would ask that you complete the intake form here at www.esd.ny.gov/SSBCI-contractors. Okay, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Anjali. I mean, that is a plethora of information, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions for you later in the Q&A. So our next speaker is Quentin Bailey. He is a compliance specialist with RFW Consultants, and he's going to talk a bit about certifications. Welcome, Quentin.
Thank you, Amy. And so exciting to hear about this funding support that's going to be available to those small businesses and local businesses that want to get involved at the new Terminal 1. So the next slide. So you've heard a lot about ACDBE certification. That's part of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise certification, specifically geared towards our airport concessions programs. And so we look at, for the certification program, we look at the owner of the business to make sure that they qualify as a disadvantaged business owner. And that means that they meet certain thresholds for their personal net worth. Also, we have a good understanding of who operates, has the expertise to operate the business day-to-day operations. And in the certification process, they'll also visit with you, with the business owner, and they used to do an in-person site visit. I understand that now they're still doing that virtually, just to get an understanding of your operations and how you operate your day-to-day. Further, if there are any questions about qualifying for that ACDBE certification, you can certainly shoot us an email at info@rfwilkins.com. rfwconsultants.com. MWBE eligibility, of course, is for the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program, and that looks at the owner of an entity and that owner has to qualify as one of the minority groups that is identified by Port Authority or New York State certification, and then again verifying that the business owner has the ability and the expertise to operate the business on a day-to-day basis as well. Next slide. And so additional resources to start the certification process, you can always go to the Port Authority website. It's PANYNJSD for supplierdiversity.com. That gives you a full description of all of the certification programs and also the links there to start the application. In addition, there's support at the Info Center, the JFK Redevelopment Information Center that's located in Jamaica, just a few steps from the Jamaica Long Island Railroad Station, where the outreach staff there at the Info Center will certainly assist you with any problems with starting the application, progressing through the applications. We also are very blessed to have a dedicated certification analyst, Gloria Wigfall, who is generally in the center on Thursdays. You can reach Gloria at that email address, gwigfall@panyNJ.gov. And she can certainly give you assistance with any issue that you have with moving through the application process. And then the location of the information center is at 14433 Jamaica Avenue, and that's in Jamaica, Queens. And once again, we have the email address where you can reach us if you need some support getting through the program, you're not able to reach Gloria, or just need some additional information on certification and the certification programs that are available through the Port Authority. Please reach out to us at info@rfwconsultants.com. Thanks so much, Amy.
Thank you, Quentin, and thank you to all of our speakers for sharing your knowledge with our audience today. Let's now go discuss next steps and how to get in touch. So next slide. So there are a number of resources available to you to walk you through business opportunities at the new Terminal 1. As you just met Quentin, RF Wilkins Consultants is our partner in providing key education and capacity building, and obviously they have certification expertise. So they are hosting office hours on Wednesdays at the JFK Redevelopment Community Information Center. I'd really encourage you to reach out, and if you're new and you're interested in doing business with a URW's commercial program at JFK, reach out to info@rfwconsultants.com. And if you are interested in architecture, engineering, or construction opportunities, please visit www.anewjfk.com. So next slide. So that is the end of our presentation today, and we are now going to open the floor to questions for our panelists. So I am going to invite Ashley, Anjali, and Quentin back to the stage for the Q&A. As a reminder, you can go ahead and post your questions in the chat. We have received a number of questions, and obviously we're going to be going through those questions now. So let me get started. So we've had a number of questions come in, and I believe I'll start with Anjali since we've had a number of questions come in for her. Anjali, the first question for you is, could you talk a little bit about the timeline that it takes to secure funding? And Anjali, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Amy. So for the timeline of funding, it honestly all depends. For our surety bonding assistance program, that is managed under one person. So everything goes through her, and then she has the direct relationships with the participating surety bond companies, but she's able to review it within a 1-week turnaround. As for New York Forward Loan Fund, it's an instant approval decision where not an approval decision, but a pre-application decision where you're automatically matched to a lender after you fill out the intake form. And once you're matched, you basically meet all of the all of the basic eligibility criteria. As for our small business and revolving loan fund and our contractor financing program, it's going to depend on the quick turnaround on how quickly documentation can be submitted to each participating lender. When you complete an intake form through ESD's website, I check that every 2 weeks. So you should be hearing from a lender within 3 weeks to start that application process if you wish to go forward.
Great, thank you. Another question for you, Anjali. So most of your financial assistance programs are based on, X years of active business operations. Do you have any programs for startups that are pre-revenue?
Yes, so we did just launch a new startup program called Main Street Capital Loan Fund, and that is exclusively through a CDFI called Pursuit, which we've partnered through. I'm happy to circulate more information about that particular program as well.
Great, thank you. Another question here for you. So explain how the average APR is, say, 3 to 6%, but a cap of 13.5%. How would the rate approach the 13% if the average is 3 to 6?
Sure. So going back to where our capital is coming from, it's from the SSBCI. And under the SSBCI, there are regulations for lenders that they cannot charge past a certain APR, and that is the 13%. So our average is a true average of 3 to 6%, where that average is taken from all of the enrolled loans within our portfolio.
Great, thank you. Ashley, I have a question for you. So do I have to share my funding status to be selected to be in the airport?
Okay, so let's break that down, right? I think the short answer is yes, you will, depending on how you're coming into the airport and depending on what is needed. We, as the URW, anytime we do a direct operation agreement or a new operator agreement, we do background checks. We do know your partner. We do credit checks, right? Because we're giving you this type of value of a deal, we need some assurity on our end that you are able to fulfill kind of the promise and the agreement that both parties have. If you were to come into wanting to do a joint venture or wholesale type of agreement, those partners would be looking for financial documentation, certification documentation as well. So I feel like it's a very fair or safe statement to say anytime you are planning to come into the airport environment, which is a government agency, you should be prepared to show all of your cards. Quentin's nodding. So, he goes through this a lot more with the certifications, but yes.
Thank you, Ashley. One more question for you. Can you have more than one funding source?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we are not going to tell you how to be funded or from where. If you need to have a few lenders or kind of a creative solution, that's not a problem as far as I can see. And most times it would not be unless otherwise stated, let's say.
Quentin, I'm going to throw a question to you. Do you have to be certified to be considered for funding?
I know the certification is definitely necessary for participation in the various programs, but I'll leave that to Anjali just to answer on the role or the requirement for certification.
Sure. So as previously stated, the SSBCI programs were, created to target that 30% requirement that a lot of New York City and New York State contracts require. However, our funding, although it does target minority-owned businesses, you do not have to be certified as an MWBE or as an ACDBE, at least for the SSBCI programs that are not the ACDBE program.
And let me just clarify or add a layer too, Amy, if that's okay.
Right.
So Anjali's group has different funds set up for different subject matters, right, that don't require certifications, although That is the primary focus, it sounds like.
Mhm.
We, on the developer or concession side, there are times where we will require a certification for the opportunity. Or if you want to be an equity partner, you would need that certification, right? So it's not cut and dry to say yes or no. I mean, the good thing is for Angeli, you don't need to be certified, but more than likely when you get to me or you get to the airport opportunity, you will need that certification, or it will help you in a big way, kind of be a set apart from the rest.
Good points. Thank you all. Angeli, a few more questions for you. Is the surety bond only for those who are doing business with JFK or not?
No, not only JFK. It's open to any contract that you may have with a New York State or city agency.
Great, thank you. Another question for you, Angeli. Minority businesses are often pressed to embrace predatory loan offerings. So I wonder if there is a case where the fiscal support can be afforded to us as a grant.
Unfortunately, under SSBCI, we do not offer grants directly to small businesses, but there are other ESD resources. I believe if you go onto ESD's website, and I think it's called Regional Economic Development Grants. I think there is another round coming up in April. So I would definitely check out for that.
And another question for you, Angeli. How do I locate an angel investor? I want to start selling ice cream from a food cart.
Angeli's popular today.
Well, for that we also have a venture side to our SSBCI programs, and this is great. Like I'm getting so many different questions from so many different angles, and I'm happy to say I feel like ESD has something for everyone, at least in this audience.
Sounds like it, yeah. So they would contact you, or do you guys put some publicity out around that, or how does that work?
I would definitely contact somebody from our venture group. I can put you in touch with them if you choose to email me directly.
Great, thank you. Ashley, a number of questions have come in for you. So a question around JV opportunities. What's the best way to connect with primes to explore ACDBE JV opportunities?
Amy, I love this question. So we will be having probably come March or April. The schedules are getting a little tight for March, and then we're getting into spring break. So we're trying to finalize a date with the Port Authority. We are working on having a matchmaking session specifically for operators who need JV partners and pre-vetted, so pre-qualified to that point before, equity partners who are ACDB certified. So you need to have your certification done, right? Check the box with Quentin. It's better to have your your financial support lined up through Angeli's group, right? And then you would come to this event in person and talk to, 5 to 10 different operators to see what they have available and put yourself in a very good position as to why they should choose to do a deal with you. So certification in order, financial lined up is always a plus, right? When these guys, so think about it. We host an event. We have like 200 or 300 people come. We're all looking for the same couple opportunities. How can I make myself stand apart or be the best option for these guys? That means I need to be ready to go with everything, which is the point of today's session. So I can't stress that enough. Take this seriously. And if you're very serious about getting into airports, get your certifications lined up, get your financial kind of funding ducks in a row, get that process going so that when the opportunity presents itself, you are ready and you don't have to pass because you're waiting for a few months for the paperwork to clear, right? This is a hurry up and wait environment sometimes where feels like things take forever and then suddenly they go like really fast sometimes, or the opportunities come and they're cyclical, right? So they come around every so often, a cluster. So I would definitely work on doing that over the next few weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, ahead of this event, to be in a very good position as to why you are a great partner, opportunity, or choice.
Ashley, we've got a number of questions around product placement, so I'm going to direct these over to you. So I'm interested in getting more info for product placement.
Okay.
What are the startup costs or terms? How do I go about doing this?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to share as much as I know. My knowledge is limited to a point because we do not do the deals for wholesale, right? This is a product placement is a wholesale agreement through a prime operator. So A, you have to have a product. B, you have to have similar to Angeli's, they're looking for a certain amount of years in business, a certain amount of sales turnover annually. What you're trying to show is that it's very rare. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen it where a business could walk in off the street from an idea and not have a physical presence or a sales presence established in the city already. Airports is not the place you want to try something. It's way too expensive to try something for the very first time without having tried it on e-com or on a physical footprint in the city somewhere throughout the boroughs. So you want to be able to show that you are, wholesale worthy. Each opportunity will be dependent on where the space is, how much shelf space they have, how many stores they could offer you in, right? So if I'm one operator and I say to you, hey, I have one little kind of 1 foot by 1 foot shelf placement opportunity for you for your candles, you divide that by the square circumference of your candles, you figure out how many you could put there at a time. So that's very subjective. It could be more shelf placement and smaller product, right? Where I need more volume of something. Either way, I would anticipate needing to have an uptick in my production volume, right? And I think the prime operator will help the product maker say, okay, for the first 6 months, we will need X amount capacity, right? So maybe that's 10,000 units for the first 6 months that you will be able to back out of, the volume, the additional costs. And then if you need support from Angeli's group, you can go to her for working capital, to kind of help get that additional production assembly stood up. So I'm sorry, I know I didn't answer 100% your question, Amy, but it's very subjective on the opportunity that you get, your product, how much it costs, those type of things.
Another question around product placement, Ashley. Who should we reach out to for discussions of product placement? I know we've been hosting events. Maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so we will have another event coming up for that. I would say probably in the May, June, right before summer gets going timeframe. We will bring our duty-free operator from Terminal 1 to the events with their team to have an opportunity to interview each wholesale party or each interested wholesale party for 5 minutes. Right. So you come to that, you bring a sample of your product, you have your kind of brand story, your business pitch. Quentin's shaking his head. We've done this a lot. You have your 2-minute spiel, right, about who I am, why I'm the right partner. Here's my product. Look how beautiful it is. The duty-free operator will say, have you done this before? What's your production look like? Can you support X, Y, or Z that we just talked about? And it's kind of a perfect matchmaking type of environment, right? Where we bring the people to the table to meet with the product's wholesale group. We've had a lot of success with this over the last 6 months to a year on all of our assets or programs. So I would say start with the intake on Quentin's side, right? Scan that QR code, email that we can maybe put up on the screen at the end. Talk to Quentin about who you are, what you do, what your certifications are, so he can support that if he needs to. It puts you into our pipeline or funnel. And then we can come to the event. Angeli can support you on the back end once you have an opportunity for wholesale, those type of things.
Yep, and I'll just highlight, Ashley, our most recent events have been in person. Great opportunity to speak, as Ashley said, directly with the operators. And in the meantime, until our next event, we're there in the Info Center in Jamaica on Wednesdays in the afternoon, and you can get an appointment with us directly at info@rfwconsultants.com.
Thanks, Quentin and Ashley. One last question, Ashley, and I know that each operator does it differently, but a question around product and wholesale products is, how will we be paid when JFK customers purchase our wholesale products if we come in as a subcontractor?
So yeah, all that's worked out through the prime. They're probably paying like a month in the rears, right? Once they're able to reconcile all the merch that's been sold, they'll cut you a check, I assume, on a monthly or quarterly basis. Sometimes that's negotiable. Sometimes it's not, right? So those are things you want to ask. But that would be the way that, the month after they would reconcile all the sales for the month. They owe us as the developer all the sales too, right? So it's very transparent environment. And then that's from there you would get paid out on that.
And another question just came in around products. Is there a way to connect with F&B operators to sell our products?
So we haven't announced any food and beverage operators at Terminal 1. We're a little too early in the process. We did do a matchmaking event with the food hall opportunity recently. So I anticipate there to be more on that between June and December of this year, Amy, that people should watch out for. We will do the same thing, an in-person meet and greet, share your products, sample your products. We do food and retail depending on the day or the event.
Quentin, Ashley, maybe one of you can answer this. If we are interested in janitorial subcontracting, what does the process look like for NTO?
That's that's out of our concessions wheelhouse, which is why we're both pausing. NTO does have a LinkedIn page that you should follow, right? It's called the New Terminal 1. They put out any RFPs for any type of service above and beyond concessions through there. They also host a Meet the Primes event, which I think is happening Thursday. I don't have full details on that, Amy. I don't know if you do, but we do not attend on the concession side. It's more about other services above and beyond concessions.
Right. That's an in-person event, and you can certainly email us and we'll connect you with we'll send you out the flyer for that event. And I believe it's posted also on anewjfk.com.
anewjfk.com. Okay.
Another question here. Are there opportunities for engineering consultancies, designing services, energy efficiency services, offering part-time or contract roles?
All that would be the same through the same. Yeah. So Quentin will send you the flyer for Meet the Primes, or Quentin we can get that flyer, maybe put it into this presentation before we send it. And then again, LinkedIn has a ton of information if you want to follow the New Terminal 1 or a new JFK, anewjfk.com. The Port Authority aggregates all their information for all of the terminals there.
I don't believe I've done this question, but apologies if I've done. This one would be directed to Ashley. I'm interested in vending and funding is not needed.
Did she freeze?
Sorry, guys. Did I lose you?
Yeah, a little bit. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm Ashley. I'm interested in vending and funding is not needed. When or how can I apply for retail placement of machines?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a ton of opportunities for those. I think we use them once in a while if we need to fill a gap. So especially for the New Terminal 1, that terminal doesn't open for about 1.5 years, 2 years. We won't have any type of clarity into that for a long time. So if you would just want to keep an eye on anewjfk.com and see if there's any RFPs for other terminal projects or anything like that as well.
Thank you, Ashley. Ashley, another question for you. What option has been the most lucrative for the concession stands from your experience?
This is a loaded question. I don't know if I can answer. Look, I think all things are relative, right? So the more money you have, the more money sometimes thinks that not making as much money doesn't seem like as much, but making some money to somebody who's just getting started feels like a lot, right? So it's very subjective or relative. I will tell you, the airports are truthfully, a very hard place to do business. They're not easy. Even when we take all the cost burden out of it, if we can, you still are paying $300 a day to staff things, right? Which means you need to be selling that much volume a day. I think that we're talking low risk, high reward. The wholesale product has definitely been like a driver for us in that. Like I said, it's a very tough environment to operate in general. So very, very expensive. We're talking $2,000 to $5,000 a square foot to check things out, right? It's not somewhere you want to come gamble. Let's put it that way. Go to Resorts World if you need that.
Thank you, Ashley. One last question for Quentin, and then we are at time. Quentin, do I need to go through the Institute of Concessions for support in landing my certifications?
Oh, absolutely not. The Institute of Concessions is a great program, and they have cohorts that are open. I believe the program is like 8 weeks or something like that. But in the meantime, your RFW is here. URW is here. Our folks at the Info Center are here to support you. And if we don't have the answer ourselves, we certainly will help to connect you with the proper folks that can help you out. Then the email address again is info@rfwconsultants.com. Someone's always there to watch the inbox, reply to your inquiries, and from there you can certainly set up an appointment to meet us either on our office hours days or sometime that's more convenient for you as well.
Well, thank you to our audience for your participation in today's session and to all of our panelists for lending your expertise. As a reminder, if you registered for this session, you will be receiving a link to the recording as well as the PowerPoint, and it will also be posted on our website. By registering for today's event, you're now a part of our Supplier Diversity Network, so you are part of our mailing list, and you will know about these upcoming outreach events and business opportunities that we've been talking about. And again, email info@rfwconsultants.com, who are available to support with any and all of your questions. Thank you again to everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to this journey as we work in partnership to create a new JFK. Thank you and have a great day.